So today's work is on rotation. So we're going to look at rotating shapes around a coordinate grid and describing rotations using angles and centers of rotation. That will be on a coordinate grid as well. Pretty much all the rotation at GCSE is on a coordinate grid. They won't do stuff just on a blank sheet of paper. And so you can use coordinates to help you with things, but tracing paper is the best way of doing this. Now, today's lesson is going to be a little bit tricky without tracing paper. So what I suggest you do is, if you haven't got any tracing paper, which most people wouldn't, have a look in the kitchen and see if you can get some greaseproof paper, because that works just as well. Okay, failing that, just give it your best shot, and I won't have quite as high expectations today if you haven't got the proper equipment, but we'll just try our best. Okay, so let's have a look at this lesson. So, shapes can be transformed by rotation. We've already looked at translation, that's moving it around, and reflection, that's a mirror image of things. And you need to say three things in order to describe a rotation. The first one is the center of rotation. So we've got a little dot on there. That's the coordinate 1, 1. That might be the center of rotation. And the angle of rotation. So if it's going to be 90 degrees or 180 degrees, they're the two main ones you're going to do in a coordinate grid. You won't really do 270 because 270 is just 90 degrees the other way. And you won't do 360 because that gets you back to the start. And you won't do 45 because that's very awkward. So it's mostly just 90 or 180 you've got to do. And the other thing is the direction, so clockwise or anti-clockwise. That is 90 degrees clockwise. Now, it's easy enough to remember clockwise if you just think about which way a clock goes. Okay, the numbers count around in this direction, so that is clockwise. If it went the other way, it would be anti-clockwise. Okay, so like it says here, it's helpful if you've got tracing paper to help you draw a rotation. Right, so this one here, we don't really need tracing paper for because it's just going to do a demonstration with some tracing paper on the computer. Okay, so we want to use tracing paper to rotate this shape 90 degrees clockwise about the point 0, 1. So we've got marked on there, coordinate 0, 1. You might not get that marked on in the exam. You'd have to be able to mark it on yourself. You always get where the first shape is though. And what you need to do is you place your tracing paper over the shape and the center. We don't need to worry about covering the entire grid. We just need to worry about placing it over so that the center and the shape's covered. Then draw around the shape. And that way we know what the shape is. When we rotate the tracing paper, we'll know where it's meant to go. You put your pencil on the center of rotation and you put some pressure there. Then when you turn the sheet of paper, the center stays exactly where it is and the shape moves to exactly where it's meant to go. Then it's a case of just carefully lifting up part of the tracing paper and marking on where the shape goes and then drawing it on properly. So it's easy enough to do with tracing paper, but if you think about how you do that without tracing paper, it's pretty tricky because you'd know 90 degrees clockwise is going to be somewhere here, but most people, because this is one square away from the axis, they wouldn't have put that right on the axis. They'd have it one square away as well. So it's really important that tracing paper is used for this sort of thing. So if the center of rotation was somewhere different, then we would get a different result. So if I move the center of rotation here to the very center, that gets us what most people would have drawn, what you expect, because this is 1 away from the axis, this is 1 away from the axis. Because this is 2 away from the axis, this is 2 away from the axis. All the numbers are the same. This is on 2, this is on -2, this is on 4, this is on -4. Okay, but that's just because it's in the very center. As we move this point, it changes where things go, and that's why it's important to use tracing paper. It can get really quite sort of odd and sort of not counterintuitive if you just put the point in any random position. Okay, so now we're going to have a look. Again, don't need tracing paper for this bit. We want to describe the rotation that maps B onto F. So B going to F. Now you might look at that and think it's a reflection, but if it's a reflection, the pointy bit will be over here. So it's definitely a rotation. Hopefully you can tell that that rotation is 180 degrees because it's upside down. So 180 degrees. And clockwise or anti-clockwise, well, 180 degrees, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say either, because if you go this way or if you go this way, it's the same thing, because 180 degrees is exactly halfway. And the center of rotation, now this is tricky without tracing paper, but all you've got to do is just find the middle, what's in between these shapes. You can hopefully intuitively tell it's here. It's right in the middle. Okay, you can see that if you join those two up, it's in the middle. If you join these two corners up, it's in the middle. Joining up the corners is going to find you that center. So that center is at 5 across and -2 down, so 5, -2. Okay, right. I'm going to reset it and try to get one that's 90 degrees just to show you that and the difference you've got to face there. So A to I, that's another 181. So I'll just very quickly go through it so that it doesn't make a difference. And that's going to be 1, 4, unless I'm mistaken. Yep, okay, hoping for 90. E to K, yep. So this one, you can hopefully see is 90 degrees. It's not facing the same way. You can tell it's just been turned on its side rather than completely upside down. So that makes it 90 degrees. Now, when you're doing 90 degrees, it matters what direction. Think about what way you'd have to turn it. If I'm moving the mouse around this way, that's how you'd turn it. That's clockwise. And the center, it's more tricky to find the center here because you are going to just have to think it's not just in the middle, because if you join these two up, that's not the same place as when you join these two up. Okay, so it's somewhere in this position here in the middle, but not exactly in the middle because it's 90 degrees. So how you do that is you would get tracing paper, you trace over the shape, and then you just put your pencil down, turn it, and see where it goes. Okay, so I'm not even going to guess that one because that's not something I do without tracing paper. Right, now this is something which you need tracing paper for. So if you have got tracing paper or greaseproof paper or something, then what you want to do is pause the video, copy up the grid, and have a go at doing these. And then when you unpause the video, I'll show you where the answers are so you can check them. Okay, so pause the video now if you've got tracing paper. Okay, so if you've had a go at that, then let's quickly have a look at where the answers are. So A would be over here. So marking on the center, 90 degrees clockwise, use your tracing paper, that's where it ends up. B, again, mark on the center, 90 degrees clockwise. So it's going this way, going around, and that's where it ends up. 90 degrees anti-clockwise, so marking on the center. Now this one, it's going this way round, so that's anti-clockwise, that's the opposite direction of a clock. And the last one is here. These are all 90 degrees. You would hopefully get some 180s sometimes, but here you can see if you mark on the center, rotate the shape, that's where it ends up. Okay, so The last thing I'm not going to cover in the lesson because it's not relevant to GCSE. It's just about transformation. It's about rotations that aren't on a coordinate grid. They aren't covered in GCSE, so I'm not going to talk about them. So what you want to do now is have a go at the MyMaths homework. Tracing paper would be useful to help you do it. If you haven't got tracing paper, just give it a go, but I'm not expecting such high marks for this exercise. But if you haven't got tracing paper and you can't spend a lot of time doing this topic, then I'm going to expect you to get more of the number work exercise done. Okay, so working on some of those number work questions would take up your time instead of this. Okay, so that's it for today.